Good evening, students. I hope, am I audible? I think ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. Okay, if you face any problem, please let me know. Okay. Yes, I'm Vinuta Bhatt, working as a biology lecturer in Sankalp Learning Solution. So, dear students, welcome to the Sankalp Learning classes. So, today we are discussing the synopsis on the chapter biological classification, and later we are discussing the MCQ questions, especially KCET questions on biological classification chapter. Okay. Yes, I hope all are ready to listen the class. Let us start with the chapter biological classification. So, in this chapter, we are studying about the brief classification of the organisms, how the organisms are classified. So, earlier classification as well as the how the organisms are classified into five kingdom classification, and mainly about the Monera, Protista, and fungi. Okay. So, plant and animal kingdom we are studying separately in third and the fourth chapter. Biological classification is the scientific method of arrangement of organisms on the basis of the resemblance and the difference into the hierarchy of categories. So here first so this is the basic type of the classification, two kingdom classification. So Carolus Linnaeus classified all the organisms into two large systems. Okay, so that is the very basic level of the classification, that is kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. Here, he included all chlorophyll containing green plants, for example, mosses, fungi, mold, lichens. So, fungi also included under the kingdom Plantae, and many cellulose and the colored unicellular organisms and multicellular seaweeds. He included all these organisms under the kingdom Plantae. That is the basic level of the classification. And kingdom Animalia, so unicellular protozoa and the multicellular organisms that comes under the Animalia. So this is not a well accepted system of the classification, just it is a basic level of the classification that is introduced by the Carolus Linnaeus. Then the three kingdom classification system. So it was given by Ernest Haeckel. The three kingdom classification system that is given by the Ernest Haeckel, and identified the kingdom Protista in the unicellular animals. Algae and fungi were placed on the basic absence of tissue differentiation. So here three kingdom classification that is given by the Ernest Haeckel, and the four kingdom classification that is given by Copeland. So this three kingdom classification also not accepted. So four kingdom classification that is given by the Copeland. So he included Monera and Protista. So three kingdom classification, Monera is Protista is included, and in four kingdom classification, Monera, Protista, Metaphyta, and Metazoa. So that is Plantae and Animalia in simple. So four kingdom classification included these four kingdoms separately. Okay, so Protista and Monera, the new two kingdoms are added in the four kingdom classification. Next, the five kingdom classification that is proposed by the, that is given by the R.H. Whittaker. Very important. Five kingdom classification that is given by the R.H. Whittaker, and the classification of the organisms that is based on the, so these points are very important: complexity of the cell structure, complexity of the organism's body, mode of obtaining the nutrition, and very important phylogenetic relationship. Based on that, he classified the organisms into five kingdom: Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and the Animalia. So he included all the unicellular prokaryotes that comes under the Monera, and unicellular eukaryotic organisms that comes under the Protista, fungi. So these are the heterotrophic organisms, multicellular but without chlorophyll. So that comes under the fungi, and Plantae, so here mainly, so this fungi, they are saprophytic. Plantae, sorry for the inconvenience. Yes, here Monera. So under the Monera kingdom, Archaebacteria, Cyanobacteria, and Eubacteria, and the Mycoplasma, the organisms which comes under the Monera. So they are, so these are prokaryotic organisms. Prokaryotic organisms, just to find out the what is the meaning of prokaryotic organisms. Prokaryotic organisms. Then here they lack the nuclear membrane. So very important. So these Monera, the organisms are prokaryotes and they lack the true nuclear membrane. So they are devoid of plastids, mitochondria and other cell organelles. So these cell organelles are absent and they have the rigid cell wall. So that is the main important characteristics of the Monera kingdom. Then the predominant mode of nutrition is absorptive, but some groups of photosynthetic and the chemosynthetic. So monera kingdom organisms, for example, the organisms belongs to these monera kingdom. So almost they absorb the nutrient, but some are photosynthetic and some are chemosynthetic. Photosynthetic means they absorb the sunlight and they are able to produce their own food, and chemosynthetic means they oxidize the some phosphate and inorganic compounds, and they are able to get the energy. Organisms have both autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. So these two types of the nutrition that we can observe in this organisms, and reproduction primarily asexual by fission or budding. So the type of the reproduction that takes place, so that is the fission or the budding type of the reproduction. Then archibacteria, so that is the primitive type of the bacteria that comes under the monera. So based on the habitat, so they are classified into halophiles. Halophiles means they live in salty area, and archibacteria which live in hot springs, that is called as thermoacidophiles, and marshy areas, that is called as methanogens. So these 3 points are important. And they have different cell wall. So archibacteria, they are able to live in the extreme environmental condition like a salty area, hot springs, etc. And they have the special cell wall structure, so compared with the other bacteria. As a result, they are able to tolerate the extreme condition. So archibacteria, so they are able to tolerate the extreme condition. And methanogens are present in the gut of several ruminant animals such as cow and buffalo. So they are present in the gut of the ruminant organisms, and so they are responsible for the release of the methane gas. So they are called as methanogens. Then cyanobacteria, so that is the blue green algae. So gram negative and the photosynthetic bacteria. So this is called as the photosynthetic bacteria. And the cell wall is two layer, possesses outer sheath, that is the jelly like and slimy mucilaginous, and inner cell wall that is made up of the peptidoglycan. So the cell wall of the bacteria monera kingdom, that is made up of the peptidoglycan. So that is mainly the chemical composition of cell wall, that is the peptidoglycan. So other than this slimy layer that is also present, that is in case of the cyanobacteria. Then the color changes from green to deep purple and blue green. So these colors produced by a different proportions of several pigments like chlorophyll, xanthophyll. So different pigments also present in this cyanobacteria. And flagella are absent vegetative phase as well as reproductive phase. So this flagella is absent, and the reproduction is very simple, takes place by vegetative means by binary fission. So this is the common type of the reproduction method that takes place in cyanobacteria. And what is the importance of this bacteria? So that is the photosynthetic bacteria. And like many bacteria, several forms of blue-green algae have capacity to fix the atmospheric nitrogen. For example, Anabina and the nostoc. Anabina and nostoc, they fix the atmospheric nitrogen. So these are the types of the cyanobacteria. Okay. Then bacteria. So that is eubacteria and heterotrophic bacteria, they are called as true bacteria. So this eubacteria, that is called as the true bacteria. So in monera kingdom you find the archibacteria, that is the primitive type, and the cyanobacteria, as well as the bacteria, that is the eubacteria, and the heterotrophic bacteria, that is called as the true bacteria. Okay, so they possess rigid wall and the flagella shape. So these bacteria are classified into different types. Coccus, so that is the bacteria having the spherical shape, that is called as the coccus. And the bacillus, that is the rod shaped bacteria, so like this, rod shaped. And the spiral, like this, They have the flagella, spiral shaped, and the vibrio, that is the comma shaped bacteria. Okay, so that is the shape it is named. Coccus, Bacillus, Spiral, and the Vibrio. Okay. Some are the pathogens. Some bacteria are pathogens. They cause the diseases like cholera, tetanus, and the typhoid. So, and in plants also, not only in humans, in plants also, like citrus canker. And bacteria mainly reproduce by fission. In unfavorable condition, they produces the spores. Okay, so this is also important. In unfavorable condition, they produces the spores, and uh, they also reproduce sexually by adopting the primitive types of DNA transfer from one bacterium to the another. So this is the type of sexual reproduction that we find in the bacteria. And mycoplasma, very very important. The mycoplasma that comes under the Monera, and which is the organism that is the very smallest living cell we can call, and which completely lack the cell wall. The very important feature which completely lacks cell wall, and many mycoplasmas are pathogen in animals and plants, for example pleuropneumonia like organisms. So the important feature of this mycoplasma that lack the cell wall, and that is the smallest living cell. So that is the that comes under the Monera. Okay. Then protista. So protista means which includes the unicellular as well as the eukaryotes, means they have two nuclear membrane. So it is classified into dinoflagellate, cell the unit of chapter. Okay, unit of life chapter. Then the mode of nutrition in these organisms, so they perform photosynthesis also. Some organisms they perform the this is also absorption and ingestion and the combination of this. Okay, unicellular colored algal diatoms and the photosynthetic autotroph and the protozoans are predator or holozoic type. Some are photosynthetic autotrophs diatoms, and some are predatory, they capture the prey, and some are holozoic, they engulf the food particles. So the different types of nutrition method that we find in the protozoa. Here, the first type type of these different classes of this protista, chrysophytes, so which includes the diatoms and golden algae, that is called as desmids. Diatoms and the desmids that comes under the chrysophytes. That's the type of the protista. Okay. So here, so these diatoms are microscopic, and which have the they are the single cell and cell wall containing material the cell wall material that is called as the silica. Okay, very important, the cell wall that is made up of the silica, and that is overlapping, so that looks like a soap box. Okay, so their cell is called as frustum or shell. They float passively in water current, and they are mostly photosynthetic, and so this silica that is indestructible. So as a result it forms the diatomaceous earth that has occurred. So what is this diatomaceous earth? So that is the silica after the death of this diatoms, the silica that remains, and the deposition of this silica, that is the cell wall of the diatoms, that forms the diatomaceous earth. so found in fresh as well as the marine water. So the cell wall, that is silica, and the diatomaceous earth, so these all are the important points that is related to the chrysophytes. And what is the use of this diatomaceous earth? Dinoflagellates mean they have the two flagella. Two flagellas are present in these organisms. So this how these flagellas are located. One have the flagella, longitudinal flagella, and other one flagella, that is the transverse. So two flagellas are present. So hence the name dinoflagellates, and mostly marine and photosynthetic. And single cell, the cell wall is stiff cellulose plates on the outer surface. So they contain the cellulose plate on the body surface, that is the dinoflagellates. And the how the flagella is located in their body, that is important. Next one, occasionally members is dinoflagellates in that gonialogs, so that accumulate in large numbers in some parts of seas and coloring the water red and responsible for the red tides. So gonialogs, very very important, which cause the red tides. And so the toxin released by the organisms may even kill over the marine animals like fishes. So this gonialogs that releases the some toxin to the water, and that may kill the marine animals like fishes. So this gonialogs, red tides, and the toxin released by this gonialogs, so that is very important. Then euglenoids means, for example, euglena comes under this euglenoids. So what is the special features of these euglenoids? So they are unicellular, and they have the character both animals and plants. So when these euglenoids they get the sunlight, they perform the photosynthesis. When they are in the deep sea, they are not able to do the photosynthesis. They are able to uh, they act as a heterotrophic, okay, both phototrophic and the heterotrophic. And cell wall is absent in euglenoids, cell wall that is absent, and only the membrane that is called as the pellicle. So in euglenoids, the cell wall is absent, and so instead of cell wall they have the protein layer that is called as the pellicle layer. So they also have the two flagella, one short and the one large. So they behave as phototrophic and the heterotrophic, so in the different condition. For example, euglena. Then slime molds. So slime molds, so these are the saprophytic. Slime molds means they are saprophytic, means they are these organisms depend on the some dead and decaying materials. So under the suitable condition, they form the aggregation called plasmodium, which may grow spread over several feet. So they form the some aggregation of cells that is called as the plasmodium, and the plasmodium shows the amoeboid movement by pseudopodia. So during the unfavorable condition, the plasmodium differentiates from the form the uh, fruiting bodies bearing the spores at their tips. So this possesses the cell wall. So this plasmodium that forms the fruiting bodies and which contain the spores during the unfavorable condition. So that is the slime molds. So they are the heterotrophic organisms. So they are the saprophytes. They form the aggregation that is called as the plasmodium forms the fruiting bodies during the unfavorable condition. Then the protozoans are the heterotrophs. So based here, protozoans are four major groups. Here, amoeboid protozoans, example amoeba. Flagellated protozoans means which has the flagella, trypanosoma, leishmania. and ciliated protozoans which house the cilia as the locomotory organ, that is called as the paramecium. And the sporozoans, so these have infectious spore stage in their life cycle, that is called as the plasmodium vivax, which cause the malaria. So in case of paramecium, so they have the small gullet, so in through that is the body opening, through that water and the some essential materials, so they move inside the body, so that opening is called a gullet. So this is the how the protozoans are categorized, and the example amoeboid, flagellated, ciliated, and the sporozoans. Example that you have to remember, very important. Then kingdom fungi. So the organisms comes under this heterotrophic organisms, and either they may be parasites or the saprophytes. Here cell wall that is made up of the, not cellulose, that is chitin. Okay, cell wall in fungi that is made up of the chitin. And here important point, so they have symbiotic association with the lichens, that is called as the that is called as the lichen. Sorry, they have the symbiotic association with the algae plus fungi, that is called as the lichen, that is equal to lichen. Fungi plus which is associated with the roots of the higher plants, that association is called as the mycorrhiza. So what is lichen, so what is mycorrhiza, so that is very important. And the reproduction, that may be fragmentation, fission, and the budding. So here asexual reproduction that takes place through the conidia, sporangiospores, and the zoospores. Conidia that is formed exogenously on the hype. So here uh, in fungi you can find the hype. Okay, so the filamentous structure in the fungi, it may be septate or aseptate, that is called as the hype. Okay, so the aggregation of hype, so that forms the mycelium, so forms the mycelium. So here the conidia, so that is formed on the hyphae like this. So that is called as asexual reproduction. And the spores, spores and the zoospores. Zoospores which have the flagella, they are able to move. And some sexual spores are also produced like oospores, ascospores, basidiospores are the some sexual spores produced by the fungi. So again fungi is classified into different classes. Before that, the reproduction in fungi that involves the mainly three steps. The first step, that is the fusion of the cytoplasm. So that is protoplasm, that is called as the plasmogamy. First step, that is the fusion of the protoplasm, that is the plasmogamy, and the fusion of the nucleoli, that is called as the karyogamy, and the meiosis, not mitosis. Meiosis in zygote result into the haploid spores. So in just imagine these are the two hype of the fungi. Okay. Then in the first step only fusion of the cytoplasm takes place and the nucleus that remains. In the second step fusion of the nucleus takes place. In the third step there is a meiosis. So this forms the zygote and the meiosis, not mitosis, meiosis and formation of the spores. So that is the three steps involved in the sexual reproduction of the fungi: fusion of the protoplasm, plasmogamy, karyogamy, and mitosis, meiosis, and the formation of the spores. So next, classification of the fungi. So fungi is classified into various classes. Phycomycetes, that is called as the algal fungi, Ascomycetes, that is called as sac fungi, and Basidiomycetes, that is called as pup balls or bracket fungi, Deuteromycetes, that is the um, incomplete fungi. Okay, so here Phycomycetes, what are the important characteristics of the Phycomycetes here, um, which is also called as algal fungi because aquatic habitat and the form of thallus. So they are growing on the wood and the moist damp places. I hope you remember these points. And the mycelium is aseptate and the cenocytic. So the mycelium, so here mycelium, so this is the hype or the mycelium, that is aseptate. There is no septa, there is no cross walls between these two. So cross wall in the mycelium, that is called as the septate and the cenocytic hyphae. And asexual reproduction takes place by motile zoospores. Zoospores means that is the motile spores and the non-motile planospores. Here Mucor rhizopus albugo. Please remember this example. Mucor, just you remember MRA. Mucor rhizopus albugo. So for Phycomycetes example, MRA, that is Mucus rhizopus albugo. Then called as the sac fungi. Why it is called as the sac fungi? So here the very important feature, that is the mycelium is branched and septate, very important. And reproduction takes place asexually by budding or by spores called conidia. So here the yeast, that is the unicellular fungi. Yeast is the unicellular fungi that comes under the ascomycetes and the conidiospores. Just imagine this is the mycelium, conidiospores, that is conidia, that is produced exogenously when this conidia, that is detached from the parental body, and that will develop into a new organism. So here the conidia, that is produced exogenously, not inside the body, outside. The conidia, that is produced outside the body. Then sexual reproduction that occurs by the ascospores, which is present in the sac-like structure, that is called as the asci. So the sexual spores that is produced inside the sac-like structure. So the name ascospores, sac fungi, and that sac is known as asci, and the different fruiting bodies are present, that is called as the ascocarps. So asci, that is the sac like structure, inside that fruiting bodies are present, that is called as the ascocarp, and so this produces the ascospores. Here example, Aspergillus claviceps neurospora. Aspergillus claviceps neurospora, that comes under the this fungi. Next, Basidiomycetes. These are called balls or fungi. So here these are commonly known as mushrooms because agaricus, that is the commonly common mushroom that comes under this Basidiomycetes, and which also cause the disease in the parasitic form, that is the rust and smut. And here also mycelium is branched and septate. Asexual spores are generally not formed, but vegetative reproduction is fragmentation is present. Here asexual reproduction is absent, but the fragmentation method of reproduction, vegetative method, that is present. They produces the sexual spores, that is called as the basidiospores, hence the name Basidiomycetes. And also there is a plasmogamy, capgamy, and the formation of this takes place. Here example agaricus, that is the mushroom, and the puccinia, which cause the rust, that is rust disease in feet, so hence it is called as the rust fungus. And here they produces the basidiospores, that is the sexual spore. Then deuteromycetes, that is the imperfect fungi, because here there is no sexual reproduction, sexual spores production takes place, so hence it is called as the imperfect fungi. For example, the asexual reproduction that takes place through the conidia, and mycelium is septate and branched. Mode of nutrition, that is the parasitic or the saprophytic forms. Here they have members belonging to the both ascomycetes and the basidiomycetes. Here, if any fungi that contain some that perform the some sexual reproduction, then it is moved to the other fungi, so it is called as the imperfect fungi. Okay, so this is about the classification of the fungi. And the sexual reproduction that is absent, trichoderma and alternaria. Examples are very important. Trichoderma and alternaria are the example for this. Then last point is lichens. Lichens are the association of the fungi and the algae. Here, algal component, what it is known as, that is the phycobiont and picobiont, and here this is the mycobiont. Fungal component is the mycobiont, and here there is a mutual relationship between the fungi and the algae. Alga prepares the food for fungi, and fungi provides the shelter which absorb the nutrients for the preparation of the food. Okay, so that is the association between the uh, algae and the fungi. And mycorrhiza, here also fungi that absorb the nutrients for the plants, and plants provide the food to the that fungi. So that is the association between the roots and the fungi of the plant, fungi and the plant. Virus, the very important one, virus or non-living. So in case of the Whitaker's classification, there is no place for some organisms. Some organisms like virus and lichens, and some what you call virus and mainly lichens. Here, what is virus? That is the non-cellular organisms that are characterized by having the inert. So they are inert outside the body. Why the viruses are not having the place in the Whitaker's classification? They behave as a when it is outside the body. When they are present inside the body, they act as the living organisms. Here, the name virus means venom, that is given by the Ivanovsky, and recognize certain microbes as a causative organisms of the mosaic disease and the tobacco. Okay, tobacco mosaic disease. Then they are inert outside the specific host cell, so they are the parasites. When they are present in the living organism's body, then only they act as the living organisms. This virus, they have the genetic material either DNA or RNA, not both DNA and the RNA. Virus is the nucleoprotein, the genetic material is the infectious. So the genetic material DNA or RNA, that is the infectious. In general, virus that infects the plants have the single-stranded RNA. Viruses that infect the animals have either single strand or the double strand DNA. So please remember this point. Bacterial viruses or bacteriophages. So the virus which cause the infection to the bacteria, that is called as the bacteriophage. Usually double strand DNA, which has the double strand DNA. Virus cause the diseases like mumps, smallpox, and influenza, and the AIDS disease. Here, in case of in plants, you can observe some symptoms like mosaic formation, leaf rolling, and curling, yellowing, and the dwarfing and the stunted growth. So this is the in plants you can observe this uh, all things in case of the virus infection. So these all are the viral diseases, and so this one is also important point. Then AIDS virus, that is the human immunodeficiency virus, that is the type of the RNA virus. So here the HIV virus, that is called as the retrovirus, which has the RNA as the genetic material, as well as it has the reverse transcriptase enzyme which forms the DNA by the reverse transcription method. Then viroids. So here viroids, so they contain the genetic material but protein coat is absent. So in case of virus, we find the genetic material as well as the protein coat, but in case of the viroids, so this protein coat is absent. So viroids are, so that is discovered by Theo Diner in the year 1971. So these are the infectious agents, and these DNA of viroids was low molecular weight than the virus. So these also cause the disease that is called as the potato spindle tuber disease. So that disease is called as potato spindle tuber disease, that is caused by the viroids. Then the prions, they are the infectious protein materials, but they do not contain the genetic material. Prions are nothing but misfolded proteins. They do not have the nucleic acids, so they cause the diseases, that is mad cow disease in animals like bovine spongiform encephalopathy, that is BSE disease. In case of humans, that is called as CJD disease. So CJD disease, that is in case of the human beings. So that is about the prions. So should know the difference between virus, viroids and the prions. Okay. So these all are the some important points from the biological classification. That is the just synopsis, the brief explanation about the chapter. So I hope you remember these all points, and I hope you studied these all points in your regular class. So just it is a what you call just it is a revision of this chapter. Okay, so brief revision of this chapter. I hope now we are going to discuss some questions related to the this chapter. So in the next class also we are discussing some questions. So let us solve some multiple choice questions from this chapter. Okay, please note down the important questions. First question, Linnaeus classified the organisms into prokaryotes and eukaryotes, Monera and Protista, bacteria and non-bacteria, plantae and animalia. Yes, what is the answer for this question? Try to answer for this question. Yes, the correct answer is option. Please try to please comment your answer in chat box. That is plantae and the animalia. So only option D is the correct answer. That is plantae and animalia. Second question. Which among the following is a major disadvantage of the Linnaeus and the Aristotle classification? Aristotle classification, that is based on the, so that is just a classification of organisms like plants into herbs, shrubs and trees. So that is based on morphology. Okay, here it is based on the morphological characters. This classification resulted in the organisms that are of completely different in the same group. It considered the evolutionary relationship of the organisms. They managed to include almost every organism in their classification. What is the major disadvantage? Here, it does not consider the evolutionary relationship, and this classification resulted in the organisms that are completely different in the same group. Yes, this is also correct one. This classification that resulted in the some different organisms. For example, some algae and fungi, and the plants and the fungi. So they are completely different. So that is in the same group. That is also one of the disadvantage. So option B is the correct answer. Yes, they consider the morphological character. They managed to include all the organisms that is discovered on the earth, and it is considered evolutionary relationship of the organisms. But the major disadvantage of this is, so the this classification resulted in the organisms that are completely different in the same group. This is the important one. Next question. Linnaeus classified the amoeba under Protista, Animalia, Monera, or Plantae. Linnaeus classified the amoeba under, so Linnaeus classification that included only Plantae and Animalia. So here he classified the organisms amoeba under, so that is the unicellular, but it is not performing the photosynthesis. If it is performing the photosynthesis means that comes under the plantae, right? The correct answer is Animalia. Option B, Animalia. Linnaeus classified the amoeba under Animalia. Option B is the correct answer. Then, according to the Aristotle, chlorella comes under Plantae, Animalia, Protista plants. So Plantae and plant, that is the same one. Okay, so that is the same option. According to the um, Aristotle, chlorella that is comes under the plants because it is performing the photosynthesis. So chlorella that is able to perform the photosynthesis. So it comes under the plants according to the earlier classification system. Next question. In Whitaker's five kingdom classification, all the prokaryotic organisms grouped under option A Monera, option B Protista, option C fungi, option D Animalia. In Whitaker's five kingdom classification, all the prokaryotic organisms grouped under what? Monera or Protista, fungi, and the Animalia. Here, prokaryotic organisms are grouped under the, yes, try to option A. Yes, that is the correct answer. Option A, prokaryotic organisms that comes under the Monera kingdom. Next question. Whitaker's five kingdom classification, all unicellular organisms are categorized under unicellular, and one more point we should add, that is the eukaryotic, unicellular as well as eukaryotic organisms. Yes, what's the option? Correct option for this: Protista, Monera, Porifera, animals. The correct option is Protista. Next question. Cell wall in fungi is made of chitin, cellulose, amino acids and proteins. So what is the correct option? Cell wall in fungi. So cellulose, that is not a um, cell wall of, that is not a chemical composition of the cell wall of the fungi. Amino acids and the proteins, that is not the um, cell wall composition of the fungi. So the correct option is option A, that is the chitin. Next question. Chlamydomonas is grouped under option A Monera, option B Protista, option C Plantae, and option D fungi. Chlamydomonas is grouped under. So Chlamydomonas, that comes under the which of the following? Monera, Protista, Plantae, and fungi. Chlamydomonas, that does not comes under the Monera. So that is the eukaryotic Chlamydomonas. It does not comes under the fungi. So you have to choose the option between Protista and the Plantae. Yes, what's the correct answer? That comes under the Protista. Next one. Next one. Which among the following don't contain nuclear membrane? But the nuclear membrane is absent. Option A Monera, option B Protista, fungi, Animalia. Animalia, they contain the well-defined nuclear membrane. Fungi also contain the nuclear membrane. Protista, they are also contain the nuclear membrane. Hence, they are called as eukaryotes. Eukaryotes. But the Monera, which does not contain the nuclear membrane. All the heterotrophic plants are categorized under Protista, fungi, Monera, Plantae. Heterotrophic plants are categorized under. So here, all the autotrophic plants. The question should be like this. All the autotrophic plants, that is categorized under kingdom Plantae. Okay. All autotrophic plants are categorized under Plantae. So Protista, that does not include that is the unicellular eukaryotic fungi, that includes the saprophytic or heterotrophic organisms. Monera, that contain the unicellular prokaryotic organisms. So the correct option, that is Plantae. Okay. Yes. So in today's session, we solved around 10 questions related to this chapter. So in the next session, we are going to solve the remaining questions from this chapter. I hope this session is useful for you people. If you have any doubt, please write it in the chat box. Thank you.